What happens when a CEO who built his hotel chain from scratch decides to work the front desk and sees a supervisor scolding guests over the tiniest things? Elias Grant didn't like sitting in executive meetings where people sugar-coated reality. 20 years ago, he started with one small roadside inn, fixing broken ice machines and folding towels himself. Now, the company had 5 mid-size hotels across 3 states, and he hadn't been to any of them in months. Lately, something felt off. Guest satisfaction scores had dipped at one location, the one in Silver Lake. Nothing dramatic, but enough to catch his attention. A few bad reviews, some complaints about unfriendly staff. His exec team brushed it off. Nothing unusual, they said. Just a few picky guests. Elias didn't buy it. He decided to see for himself. He booked a week at the Silver Lake location under a fake name and set up a cover. He'd pretend to be a new front desk trainee sent from a temp agency the company worked with. His disguise was solid graying hair dyed darker, beard shaved clean, a pair of thick-rimmed glasses, and khakis with a polo shirt that made him look like a guy trying to hold on to his second job. He even wore insoles to walk with a slight limp. The staff wouldn't recognize him, none of them had ever met him. Turnover had been high the last few years, and he'd mostly dealt with district managers. This place had a dozen employees, and the manager, a woman named Karen, had only been with the company for 6 months. He showed up Monday morning, 15 minutes early. The lobby had a clean layout, modern furniture, muted colors, the usual. He waited near the staff door until a woman in her late 40s, short with sharp features, let him in. "You must be Elliot?" she asked, glancing at the temp agency badge he wore. "That's me," Elias said, voice low and casual. "I'm Karen, the manager. You'll be shadowing Maria at the front desk. Don't get in her way." Maria turned out to be in her early 30s, with tired eyes and a polite smile that never quite reached her face. She showed him how to log into the system, how to check people in, and how to answer the phones. She was patient. Elias noticed she was also doing 2 people's jobs. "Where's the evening shift guy?" he asked at one point. "Left last week. We're still short. Karen says we'll manage." By the second day, Elias had already picked up on some tension. Karen hovered constantly, barking small instructions. She didn't do much herself, mostly watched the monitors and walked the lobby with a clipboard. But it was Wednesday afternoon when Elias saw something that made his stomach twist. A young couple walked in, mid-20s, dressed casual. The man had a skateboard under his arm, and the woman wore a hoodie and leggings. They looked a bit road-weary. "Hi, we have a reservation under Jamie," the woman said. Before Maria could even respond, Karen stepped in from behind. "You can't check and dress like that," she said coldly. The couple blinked. "Excuse me," the man asked. "This is a business-class hotel," Karen snapped. "We expect guests to look presentable in common areas." Maria looked frozen. Elias stepped back, letting it play out. "We're just checking in," the woman said, clearly confused. "We drove 6 hours. We'll change later." "You can either change now or find another place," Karen interrupted. "We don't need guests who don't respect the environment." Elias watched the couple leave, embarrassed and angry. Later, in the break room, he asked Maria quietly, "Does that happen often?" Maria hesitated. "She's strict. Says it's about keeping standards. But yeah, people walk out sometimes." He nodded slowly, suppressing the rising anger in his chest. The next day, it happened again. An elderly man with a stained shirt was told he couldn't wait in the lobby for his room to be ready because he looked like a loiterer. Karen didn't even lower her voice. Elias clenched his jaw. This wasn't just about standards. He started pulling Maria aside between shifts, asking her questions. She opened up gradually. She'll write people up for things like smiling too much or not enough. Once, she yelled at me for using a pen that didn't match the front desk aesthetic. "Why haven't you said something?" Elias asked. "I need the job," she said simply. Elias couldn't sleep that night. He sat in the hotel room, staring at the ceiling fans spinning above him. He had worked too hard to build a place that made people feel unwelcome. He thought about Maria, overworked and still kind. About the couple who'd driven 6 hours just to be humiliated in the lobby. About the old man who left with hunched shoulders. He had seen enough. Tomorrow he would step in. And Karen wouldn't see it coming. Thursday morning, Elias arrived just before sunrise. The lobby lights were still dim, casting long shadows across the tile. He stood behind the desk again, Maria already logged in, her fingers moving through the booking system like second nature. She looked more drained than usual. "Did you sleep at all?" he asked quietly, watching her eyes shift quickly between reservation screens. "Couple hours," she muttered, not looking up. "My shift ended at 11. Got called back in at 5. Karen said someone from housekeeping called out, and we needed all hands on. Your front desk. She said guest check-ins don't start until noon, so I had time to help prep the breakfast trays." Elias narrowed his eyes. "Who else is here?" "Just me. And the night audit guy, but he clocks out in 10 minutes. He looked around. No sign of Karen. The security monitor behind the desk showed empty hallways. There were no guests in sight, but the kitchen door was propped open, and a metal cart of bread and sealed butter packets sat untouched. Maria set down a stack of printed invoices, rubbing her wrist. "She left me a note saying to refill the business center printer too. Said the toner was making the brand look cheap." Elias didn't respond right away. His thoughts ran faster than the elevator down the hall. He stepped into the back office briefly, pretending to grab paper clips from a drawer, and instead snapped a photo of the note Karen had written with a timestamp. He didn't need more proof, but at this point, he wanted documentation. Around 8, a woman in a blazer walked in with a small roller bag. Her heels clicked against the tile as she approached the desk. "I'm here for an early check-in. Name's Dr. Tolbert." Maria stood, smoothing her shirt. "One moment, let me check availability." Before she could finish, Karen emerged from the stairwell, lipstick freshly applied, coffee in hand. "Maria, you're not authorized to process early check-ins without supervisor clearance." "I was just checking," I said no. "These are policy decisions. Please step aside." Elias watched the guest's eyebrows lift slightly as she looked between them. Maria stepped back. "There are rooms available," Elias said evenly. Karen didn't even glance at him. "You're still in training. That means you observe." Dr. Tolbert exhaled, clearly trying to remain polite. "I'm a speaker at the Silver Lake Health Symposium. I emailed last week about an early room." Karen cut her off. "That doesn't entitle you to special treatment. We prioritize guests based on booking tier and loyalty status. If you don't qualify, you can wait in the lounge." Dr. Tolbert's voice dropped half an octave. "I booked a premium suite for 3 nights, paid in advance. I've stayed in this hotel chain over 20 times. Maria quietly opened her drawer, pulled out a printout, and handed it to Elias behind the desk. He scanned the paper. Premium guest. VIP status flagged. He looked directly at Karen. "She qualifies. Room's ready. I'll walk her up." Karen's face tightened. "You'll do no such thing." Elias stepped around the counter and gestured to the elevator. "This way, Dr. Tolbert." She nodded, and they walked in silence until the elevator door shut. "Let me guess," she said. "New management." Something like that. Once she was in her suite, Elias returned downstairs. Karen was by the lobby window, tapping on her phone. He walked past her and back behind the desk. Maria was restocking brochures from a plastic tub, her hands trembling slightly. "I'm not sure how much longer I can do this," she whispered without looking up. "The staff here ever had team meetings? One-on-ones? Anything at all? Only if someone gets written up. Otherwise, you don't hear much. And upper management? Anyone visit recently? Maria shook her head. Last time was 2 months ago. The guy just asked for occupancy numbers and left. Karen handled it. The lobby began to fill slowly as more guests trickled in. A family with 2 kids, a man in a suit balancing 3 phones, a woman in scrubs who looked like she'd just come off a night shift. Elias handled check-ins while Maria juggled phone calls and printed receipts. Karen disappeared into the office and didn't reappear for over an hour. At lunch, Maria ducked into the back for 10 minutes. Elias stayed up front, handling 2 walk-in reservations and a request for extra pillows. He saw Karen reemerge briefly, say nothing, and return to the office with a sandwich in hand. By late afternoon, Elias was done watching. He left the desk, walked down the hall, and entered the manager's office without knocking. Karen looked up, startled. "You don't have clearance to be in here." "I do now." She stood, eyes narrowing. "Excuse me?" He reached into his pocket and pulled out his wallet, flipping it open to reveal his real ID card. Elias Grant, founder and CEO. Karen's face went slack. "I've been here 4 days. I've seen enough." She opened her mouth, then closed it again. Her hands stayed at her sides, stiff. "I saw you humiliate a guest in front of the lobby. Twice. I've watched you make Maria cover shifts she wasn't trained for while you spent half the day in this office. I've read the notes you leave demanding toner changes because it affects the brand." "She's exaggerating," Karen said quickly. "These staff don't understand expectations. I've been trying to set a tone. You've set one." He leaned forward slightly. "You've created a place where employees are afraid to speak, where guests are treated like liabilities unless they look a certain way or act exactly how you want. That's not a tone. That's arrogance." She stayed silent. "There's no coming back from this," he said quietly. "We have 0 tolerance for discrimination or mistreatment. You're done here." Karen's voice finally returned, brittle and defensive. "I've been following procedure. You can't just—" He held up 2 fingers. "You have 5 minutes to get your things. Security will escort you out. Your final check will be processed by corporate HR. Don't speak to the staff again." He turned and walked out. Back in the lobby, Maria was helping a couple print boarding passes. Elias waited until they finished, then spoke. "Can I talk to you a minute?" She followed him into the employee break room. He shut the door gently. "She's gone," he said. Maria blinked. "What?" "Karen. I terminated her contract. Effective immediately." Maria's mouth opened slightly, but no words came out. "I'm staying the rest of the week. We'll bring in an interim manager from another location. But I want you to help me figure out what this place actually needs." She sat down slowly. "I'm not a manager. You've been holding this place together without the title. That counts for something." She looked at him, unsure. "I'm not offering you a promotion yet. I'm offering you a voice. Starting now." Maria nodded slowly. "Okay." Elias exhaled. The air in the room shifted slightly, less weight pressing down. He stepped back into the hallway, already dialing the regional director. There were more pieces to move, but the first, and he hoped hardest, had just been dealt with. By Friday morning, word had traveled quietly among the staff. No announcements had been made, but the absence of Karen's presence and the sudden calm that followed was noticed. Maria didn't ask questions when Elias handed her the override codes to the front desk system and a laminated sheet listing key contacts at corporate. She nodded once, tucked the papers into a drawer, and resumed helping a guest without missing a beat. Elias spent the early part of the day managing the floor with her, not from behind a desk, but by circulating through the property. He took notes on everything: broken vending lights in the West Wing, a persistent leak near the elevator shaft, and a digital directory that hadn't been updated in over a year, still listing events from the previous summer. The maintenance team was down to 1 man, Trevor, who'd been splitting his time across rooms, plumbing issues, and guest requests. He met Elias during a linen closet restock. Didn't think someone from corporate knew where the mop sink was, Trevor said, lifting a laundry bin with both arms. I know where all the problems hide, Elias replied. You always running solo? Trevor leaned against the wall for a moment, sweat forming at his temples. Other guy quit last month. Said he was tired of being invisible. I've been covering both shifts since. Karen said hiring was frozen. Elias didn't respond right away. Instead, he took a photo of the service schedule pinned to the wall. Trevor's name filled every line of the past 3 weeks. No days off. You're not invisible, Elias said. We'll get you help. He meant it. By noon, Elias had compiled enough first-hand observations to warrant a full incident report. He called in the regional HR rep, Darlene, who arrived by late afternoon. She'd worked with the company for over a decade and walked in with a manila folder under one arm and a look that told Elias she'd already heard just enough to be concerned. They took a small meeting room near the back hallway. Maria joined them briefly, providing specific examples of missed breaks, shift changes that weren't logged, and handwritten warnings Karen had issued without cause. Darlene scanned each document with a frown deepening across her brow. These aren't policy compliant, she said, tapping one of the warnings. We don't discipline employees for clothing pens or personal posture. No one challenged her? Elias asked. Not that reached my desk, Darlene replied. But if she threatened retaliation or implied people could lose their jobs, that would explain it. I'll run a full audit. After Maria returned to the front desk, Darlene lowered her voice. How do you want to handle the fallout? We fix it from the inside out, Elias said. No press releases. No perespin. We start by giving these people what they've been denied support. They began with Trevor. Darlene conducted a formal debrief and approved an emergency maintenance hire from the city's staffing pool. A second temp would arrive within 48 hours. Trevor would get 2 days off, paid. Not asking for much, Trevor said when Elias informed him. Just good shoes and some sleep. In the staff lounge, Elias met with the housekeeping team next. For women, all working rotating shifts that had been stretched thin. One of them, Rosa, had taken on weekend laundry duties without hours being logged. She said she'd make it up on the next payroll, Rosa said quietly, referring to Karen. Elias didn't ask further. He wrote down the missing hours himself, signed the page, and handed it to Darlene. Retroactive pay, full rate. And we'll bring in 2 floaters from the downtown location until we can hire locally. The room stayed silent for a moment. Then one of the women, a younger employee named Kemi, spoke. I thought the company didn't care anymore. Like, we were just numbers. You're not, Elias said. You never were. Later that evening, Elias returned to the front desk. Maria was finishing up a check-in for a family whose toddler had fallen asleep mid-sentence. She handed the parents a coloring book from the drawer beneath the counter, a small gesture, but one that softened their tired expressions. When they walked off toward the elevator, Elias stepped beside her. You ever think about running a property? She gave a short laugh. I think about getting through the week. I'm serious, he said. You've kept this place from falling apart. You've earned more than a title. Maria turned toward him, hesitant. I don't know if I want to manage. I don't want to become what I just watched walk out of here. You won't, Elias replied, because you've seen what happens when someone forgets what leadership means. She looked away briefly, then back. What if I mess it up? You won't. But if you do, you'll own it. That's the difference. Elias didn't offer the job then. That would come later after more training, more support, and an actual choice. But he wanted her to start thinking about it, not as a reward, but as a path forward. Just before closing out for the night, a man in his 60s approached the desk. He wore a faded windbreaker and carried a duffel bag by the strap. His reservation had been flagged for late arrival. I'm here for a room, he said, voice roughened by fatigue. Name's Leonard. Elias pulled up the file. The man had booked through a veteran service program. A discounted rate, 3 nights. Glad you made it, Elias said. Room's ready. Leonard glanced around. Nice place. Wasn't expecting much. You'll get more than that, Elias said. As Elias handed him the key card, Leonard paused. Last place I stayed, they made me wait in the parking lot until I changed shirts. Said I looked like I was between addresses. Elias didn't reply right away. You're welcome here, he finally said. No conditions. Leonard nodded once and headed upstairs. When the lobby emptied out and the lights dimmed for the night, Elias stood by the desk with Maria, both of them watching the elevator doors close behind the last guest. Tomorrow, we start drafting a new operations guide, he said. Your input's going in the first section. She leaned against the desk, tired but still standing. Can we call it something other than operations guide? He smiled faintly. Got a better name? She thought for a moment. How about How Not to Lose the Plot? That'll do. They stood in silence for a moment longer. Outside, the sky darkened over Silver Lake, but inside, the tone had shifted. Not with speeches or promises, but with action quiet, deliberate, and overdue. By Saturday morning, the difference at the Silver Lake property was noticeable, but not miraculous. No one was celebrating. No one had time. There were still too few hands for too many tasks. The front desk was understaffed, the linen truck had arrived late, and one of the water heaters had gone out in the north wing. Elias knew better than to expect immediate transformation. He had come here to uncover a problem. What he found was a system that had quietly bent under pressure until it nearly snapped. Fixing it would take time, but the first cracks had been sealed. He started the day in the back office, Karen's former domain. Her belongings were boxed up and moved. The space felt bare, but at least now, the door stayed open. The office would be shared until they found a new manager. Maria had declined an interim title, but she agreed to help with scheduling and daily debriefs, as long as she could still work the desk. They trust me at the counter, she had said. Let's not break that. Elias respected the instinct. Mid-morning, he met with the district facilities lead, who had driven in to assess the heating issue. It wasn't a simple fix. The unit was over a decade old and had been flagged for replacement twice in the past year, requests that had never reached corporate. She must have been filtering reports, the tech said, flipping through the maintenance logs. Elias didn't answer. He didn't need to. The pattern was clear: short-term savings at the cost of long-term stability. He approved an emergency replacement order on the spot. It would take 5 days, but in the meantime, they rerouted hot water from the south wing. Guests in the affected rooms were offered complimentary upgrades. Maria made the calls herself. He listened from the hallway as she handled each one with a tone that was calm, direct, and never apologetic, just honest. In the afternoon, Elias left the property briefly to meet with a local staffing agency. They had worked with his company before, but had stopped sending candidates to Silver Lake 6 months ago. Too many complaints, the agency rep said. People said they'd show up and be told they weren't the right fit, based on how they looked. Did anyone specify what that meant? The man hesitated, then nodded. Mostly younger applicants, with visible tattoos. A few women said they were told to tone down the makeup during orientation. And we had a veteran who walked out after being asked if he could handle guests without getting too intense. Elias felt the quiet tension in his chest return. I'll make this simple, he said. We're reopening the pipeline. No one will be judged on appearance, age, background, or anything outside job performance. If you hear otherwise, you call me directly. He handed over his personal contact information, then left without waiting for a reply. Back at the hotel, the lobby had grown busier. A soccer team had checked in 10 teenagers with duffel bags and a coach who looked like he hadn't had a day off in weeks. Maria handled them with ease, swapping room keys and handing out extra towels. Trevor had returned from his break and was loading cleaning supplies onto a cart when Elias caught up with him. "Got anyone to help tomorrow?" Elias asked. "Yeah," Trevor said, adjusting a shoulder strap. "A guy named Deshawn's coming in from the downtown property. Just for the weekend."
Good.
"You'll train him? If he shows up on time and doesn't treat the plunger like it's radioactive, I'll make it work." Elias nodded. "You need a raise." Trevor paused. "That a joke?"
No.
"I'll call payroll Monday. You've been covering the equivalent of 2 jobs." Trevor didn't say, "Thank you." He just nodded and kept moving. That was enough. Later that evening, Elias stepped behind the counter while Maria handled a delivery issue in the kitchen. A guest approached an older woman with a notepad and a set of questions about local art galleries. "I heard there's a ceramics place run by a woman who used to teach at the university," she said. Elias pulled up a few listings and printed a map. As she leaned over the counter to take it, she looked at him closely. "You know, you don't talk like most front desk staff." He smiled faintly. "How do they usually talk? Like they're trying to get you out of the way. You actually listen." He handed her the paper. "We're trying something new." She left with a thank you and a nod. As the sky darkened, Maria returned and flopped into the chair behind the desk. "Kitchen's a mess," she said. Delivery guy dropped half a crate of eggs. "Rosa's cleaning it up. Let me help." "No," she waved me off. Said she used to work in a diner. Said a little yolk never hurt anyone. Elias chuckled quietly. "You know," she said, looking over at him, "I've been thinking about your question." "Which one?" "The one about running a property." He waited. "I don't want this place to go back to how it was. And I don't trust someone from the outside to know what we've been through." He nodded once. So, maybe I'm not saying yes. But I'm not saying no either." He looked at her directly. "You'd have my full support. That includes training, a mentor, and the ability to build your own team. No pressure to rush." "I'd want to promote from within," she said. "Rosa, Trevor, even that new girl from housekeeping, Ariel. They've all been stepping up. Then we start there." She leaned back in the chair, thinking. "I want to rewrite the staff handbook. Not just policies. Something that actually reflects how things work here." "Do you want help?"
No.
"But I want you to read it before it goes out."
Deal.
Around 9, the soccer team returned from their game. The coach approached the desk to ask if they could use the lounge for a quick team meeting. Maria granted it without hesitation and unlocked the adjoining space. Elias watched as the boys filed in, laughing and tired, their jerseys stained, their energy still buzzing despite the hour. He stood quietly near the elevator, taking in the scene. No one being turned away.
No sidewise glances.
No one made to feel small. This was what the hotel was supposed to be. He left early the next morning.
No formal announcement.
No press. Just a quiet departure after restocking the break room fridge with fresh coffee pods and leaving a handwritten note in the drawer beside the front desk binder. It said, "Keep what works. Change what doesn't. And always listen to the people who actually do the work." E.g., back at headquarters, he gathered his executive team and laid out the full report. Every hotel in the chain would undergo a local audit. Anonymous employee feedback would be implemented quarterly. On-site visits would become the norm, not the exception. "This won't be handled from a boardroom," he told them. "We built this company on trust. Somewhere along the way, we forgot that's something you have to earn, not command." No one argued. Before he left the room, Elias made one final point. "We don't just run hotels. We run spaces people live their lives in. If we don't treat our employees with dignity, we can't expect them to do the same for our guests." Then he walked out, already drafting the next set of changes. Back in Silver Lake, Maria finished her shift and stayed an extra half hour to help Ariel prep for the morning. Trevor laughed at something down the hall. Rosa stocked fresh towels in the guest closets. Everything wasn't perfect, but it was honest. And it was theirs.